Halloween had always been my favorite time of year. The decorations, the costumes, and the eerie ambiance of the night, it made me feel alive in a strange way. My friends always joked that I liked it a little too much. So when my new neighbors invited me to their Halloween party, I couldn't resist. I hadn't met them yet, but they had moved into the old, creepy house at the end of the street, the one that had been vacant for years. It seemed perfect. Something about that house just screamed Halloween. When I arrived, the house was decked out in all sorts of decorations. Skeletal hands reaching out from the garden, glowing jack-o'-lanterns lining the walkway, and cobwebs draped across the doorframe. It was like stepping into a movie set. The door creaked open before I could knock, and I was greeted by a man and a woman dressed in old-fashioned costumes, their faces perfectly smooth, almost too smooth. There was something about their smiles that made my skin crawl, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I brushed it off as part of the act. It was Halloween after all. Come in, the man said, his voice smooth but a little too even, like it had been rehearsed. I stepped inside and immediately something felt wrong. The other guests were milling about, but they all looked just a little off. Their costumes were great, sure, but there was something about their faces, too symmetrical, too perfect. Their expressions didn't change, even when they laughed or spoke. It was as if their faces were painted on. I tried to ignore the feeling creeping up my spine, grabbing a drink and wandering around the house. The decor was impressive. Old portraits hung on the walls, their eyes seeming to follow me as I moved from room to room. The furniture looked antique, and everything had an almost unnatural gleam to it, like it hadn't been touched in years. I ended up in the kitchen, hoping to find some of my friends, but instead, I ran into the woman who had greeted me at the door. Her smile hadn't changed since I walked in. "Are you enjoying the party?" she asked, her head tilting just a fraction too far, like a puppet on strings. "Yeah," I lied, "it's great." I was starting to feel trapped, like the walls were closing in. I decided I'd had enough and made my way toward the door, but every time I passed a guest, their eyes followed me. Their smiles, never wavering, seemed stretched like their faces were made of wax. Just as I reached the door, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Leaving so soon, it was the man, his face frozen in that same eerie smile. Up close, his skin looked almost plastic, like a mannequin brought to life. The night is still young. I forced a laugh and stepped out onto the porch. "Yeah, I think I've had enough for one night. Thanks for the invite." As I walked down the path, I could feel their eyes on me. I glanced back one last time and froze. The guests, all of them, stood at the windows, their faces pressed against the glass, watching me leave. Their smiles stretched wider than ever. I bolted down the street, my heart pounding in my chest. When I reached home, I locked the door behind me, breathing heavily as I tried to calm down. It had to have been some elaborate prank, right? That's what Halloween is for. But the next day, as I walked past the old house on my way to work, I noticed something weird. The house was empty. There were no decorations, no lights, no sign of a party ever having taken place. The windows were dark and dusty, the lawn overgrown, and the for sale sign still sat in the yard, untouched. But how did I get an invite? Who were those people, and why were their faces like that? I have so many unanswered questions. I've walked past that house every day since, and I've never seen anyone come or go. But sometimes late at night, I swear I hear laughter coming from inside. And once, just once, I thought I saw a face in the window, smooth, symmetrical, and smiling.